everybody. Hello. Welcome to my channel. Nobody should beat me or nobody should beat me. For more, I've written a dissertation here to read. So I'm going to be looking at my laptop because I just have so much to say. And I can't quantify it off my brain. And there's a lot of things that need to be said. This introduction for me is one that I want to set as a foundation for this channel. And everything is in here. I've written it like a presentation. So I will present it to everybody. And everyone, you guys listen. So get a drink, anything that you need to stay focused. It is quite long. Even me, I read it halfway. I said, yay, should I chachipiti? Should I, bring it down? Because I had so much to say, and putting it into words and writing it really, really, really touched me. Sha. If you have known me, you would know that I had a blog before, so I used to write a lot. But I haven't written in quite a while. I haven't touched my pen in quite a while, girl. So many but I thought rather than writing it and putting it on a blog, this was something I wanted to say face to face. It's something that I wanted to put my heart and soul into, but also even for myself to watch back and really understand this journey that we're about to take together. For reference, I am now in my late 20s, and I started this YouTube thing in my teens. I mean, I used to go to secondary school, come back and do videos. So wherever those videos are, if you ever see them, that was me. That was me. So yeah, let's start. So this video is about my diaspora identity. Why did I title it My Diaspora Identity? Mainly because I feel I'm a bridge between two worlds. I live as a bridge between two worlds. I have my African accent, and depending, I feel you talk me in a pidgin because I've been a Cameroonian, or I'm a British babe. And depending on the day you find me or what I'm saying, you can get a different version of me. But that is the beauty of being a diaspora. And so I wanted to share this because I felt someone out there, or most people out there, will be able to identify themselves at some point in this story and hopefully encourage anyone and bring me those followers, because I feel we're living in the same world and the same reality. And at this stage of my life, I want to have followers and also create a community where we have a like mind. So when we speak, we're speaking in one language and with one understanding. Whether you're a diaspora that grew up here fully, were born here and grew up fully and existed in an African home, so you still had that duality, or you were born in Africa, came here at a young age, still had that duality, or you've migrated to Europe or anywhere else in the world, and you're now living in that reality, this is the channel for you. And this is where we will all come together and share our experiences and live our lives together. So, officially, hi everyone. It's been a while. And if you've been around this channel before, you will probably notice that everything looks a little different. I've deleted my old videos, and for a long time, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to come back, or I wasn't sure I wanted to come back in this channel. We have done everything on this channel. But I think sometimes it's healthy to step away for a while and understand who you actually are and the purpose behind what you're doing. I've spent the last few years growing up. I've grown up. More guys, I'm a mommy now. Not that I haven't birthed a child yet, but more right now in my house, me and mommy, and we'll get into that why later. Grieving, so that's a hint. I've been to therapy for over 2 years, truly questioning myself because of all the life changes I've experienced. and just trying to figure out where I belong within myself, within my natural ecosystem, my friendships, and everything in between. And ultimately trying to understand myself in a much deeper way. I think that is probably the best place for me to begin again, by telling you my story all over again. Not because I think my story is an unimaginable story, but because I think sometimes our personal experiences can help us understand things that are happening on a much bigger scale. Because we'll touch upon it bigger in a bigger scale, but also individually within ourselves. So if you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. Truly, this is my diaspora identity. So we're going to have a mixture of everything. Let's truly represent what we are. Let's start off with the Bible, because that is our foundation. And we are going to be talking about the Good Samaritan story. It's a parable. And what are parables? They're stories with a meaning. And it's how Jesus, and it's what Jesus used parables, stories, to explain different situations and give us an understanding of how to deal with different situations. I hope I didn't repeat that too many times. So before I tell you my story, I want to start with a story that has been sitting with me. And that is the story of the Good Samaritan. So everybody get your Bible. Open to Luke 10. I think it's 27 to 37 we'll be reading. Or 25 to 37, one of them. But look for the Good Samaritan in the Bible. And read it for yourself. If you want to take a pause and read it for yourself, I would advise that you read it for yourself and get an understanding and let the Lord minister to you what it means to you before see the African come out before listening to the story. But the story is about Jesus, and he tells the story of a man who is attacked, beaten, and left on the side of the road. People see him and pass him. They don't stop. Then a Samaritan comes along, sees the wounded man, has compassion for him, and he helps him. He takes care of his wounds. He takes him somewhere safe and pays for them to take care of him. And what strikes me about this story is who Jesus chooses to make the helper, a Samaritan. At that time, there were a group of people, the Jews and the Samaritans were a group of people that were divided. So you wouldn't see the mix. And someone from a group as a Samaritan helping that had deep division with the people the wounded man belonged to. And yet in this story, the person who crosses the boundary is the person who shows love, honestly. And the question wasn't, is this person from my group? The question was, what am I going to do when I see another human being in need? And that question has really stayed with me, because I think we're living in a time where it's becoming increasingly easy to divide ourselves. Us and them, black and white, British and immigrant, native and foreign, one culture against another, one religion against another, one political belief against another. And sometimes we become so focused on our groups that we forget to see the actual person, the person that you're talking to. So I want to tell my story because I've experienced unfamiliarity from more than one side, and perhaps that is why I've come to believe so strongly in trying to understand one another. So I'm a Cameroonian by birth and British through the journey of immigration. I came to Britain when I was young, and this country became a place where I grew up, built relationships, experienced loss, and ultimately began to understand where I belong. I think there is something very particular about growing up in the diaspora that is difficult to explain unless you've actually lived it. You know where you came from, but you're also learning where you are. And sometimes those two things can feel completely separate. Cameroon is my foundation. It's the foundation of who I am, being a Cameroonian. However, Britain itself has also become the environment in which I have grown, learnt, adapted, and truly built a life. Somewhere between those two worlds, I figured out who I was. I went to a predominantly white school, grew up in a predominant white area, and for me, Britain was a huge culture shock. The people were different, the culture was different, the way people communicated was different, and even things that now feel completely normal to me, even just the accents. I remember the first time I saw the bus stop and they were saying the bus is due. I said, what does due mean? Honestly, because in Africa, you just hail, you know? Um, but now everything feels so normal to me. What was once foreign is normal. And when you're young, you don't necessarily have the vocabulary to say, I'm experiencing culture shock. You just think, this is what people are like. And I think that distinction is important because some of the things I believed when I was younger came from exactly that place. My own experiences, what I had seen, what I had not yet experienced, and trying to make sense of a world that was very different from the one I knew. With that being said, I want to use one of the experiences that I have been meditating over as I think about my diaspora experience. If you have had me on social media, or more, I've been on some social media platforms. I've deleted some now because I just can't, I don't have the capacity to be everywhere. As an adult now, when I was younger, yes, but now I have to just be honest with myself, especially because I work in marketing. I'm a digital marketer by trade. So if I'm not making money on an app, or if I'm not genuinely enjoying what I'm doing or having fun, it's just a waste of time I can be investing in doing something else. But I want to go back on this story. When I was younger, I would tweet about my preference for white boys over black boys. And probably I said some things about black boys back then. I didn't have my Twitter to know. But I had bad dating experiences with black boys when I first came to this country. And because I was so young in secondary school, I was naive in my thinking. At that age, my emotions were actually my thoughts. I found white boys safer in a relationship because majority of the white boys in my area just, to me, felt safer. That's the truth. Safer with my emotions. Safer. They were just direct. If I don't like you, I don't like you. Or more, like, if the relationship was the relationship, was the relationship. And I didn't find that same transparent. That's the word I should use. Transparency. In dating my own race at that time. So based on my own experiences, that became my preference. But as the years went on, my friends introduced me to black communities nearby, which will go for raves, party in the park, if you know shubs, house parties. Put up your hand if you were a party starter, if you were the one that opened the dance floor. Put up your hand. Is it you? You're my person. You're my person. But then from that point, I had a bigger pool of boys my race, black boys. And I finally felt like I started to meet people who shared like minds in terms of our mannerisms. Also how mannered we are when we go outside, because there is a way and an art to our culture, but also Christian as well. So sharing the same belief and the same faith, which is important to me because I believe faith is also a language. If we are speaking from the same language in terms of what we believe in, then the ways in which we conduct ourselves will always be from that point of view. And I think is key because what you believe in shapes who you are and essentially who you become. That experience challenged the way I had been thinking. I realized that I had taken my individual experiences and allowed that to become conclusions about a whole group of people. I realized my naivety at the age was based on my own experiences and the culture shock. I was trying to understand a completely different environment with the limited experiences I had at the time. But as I grew up and I got older, my world essentially became bigger, made more friends. Obviously, you go to work, I did an apprenticeship, so I was always in London, and London is very diverse. Even in my summer, I think my last summer in secondary school before deciding if I was going to go to university or do an apprenticeship, I worked in London, and wow, if you walk at Oxford Street, I said, when I walked up it, I said, okay, let's calculate it now. You pay travel because I was living in zone 5. At that time, even outside zone 5. Yeah, because I was outside zone 5. I'll pay that one. Get there, and me, I need to have fresh lunch. That packed lunch at the same pack. Oh, by the time I probably would have eaten it on my way to work. I the first like me chop. And I calculate everything. I said, it's better to just walk close to your house now. But that experience was good for me because it prepared me for the next step, which was an apprenticeship. Did I say internship or apprenticeship? And trying to make sure I follow my notes whilst also remembering as I go along. So my world became bigger and so did my understanding. I think that is something important to acknowledge when we talk about things people said when we were young. I'm not saying it was right. I'm not. I'm saying I understand where it came from. And more importantly, I understand that I grew beyond it because now I see the world differently. I learned, you know. I also realized something else as I got older. My preference today truly is to marry my own culture or marry from my own cultural world, that being Africa. Not because I think white people are bad, but truly quite the opposite. I have amazing white friends. Honestly, if you see my social media, they they are the side quest. Because also, if you think about it, this is their country, right? They have grandparents, generations. So there are things that they do that truly you would not think to do it because when you come here, for most of us, where our parents are in survival mode and we adapt, and so we learn or have experiences based on what we are exposed to or what our aunties or uncles are exposed to. So having people from their own land to experience this world with them, it's a gift. And if God gives that to you, honestly, appreciate it. Like I said, I have amazing white friends to this day, and some of those friends stood with me when my mom passed away because my mom did pass away. I'm not sure if she appeared on this channel much, but if you follow me on my other social media platforms, you would have seen my mommy. And they supported me through grief and encouraged me towards practices that aren't always spoken openly in the Black culture, such as therapy and seeking other medical support just to help me get myself back to who I am. And those friendships have been incredibly meaningful to me. But when it came to settling down and building a family, as I'm in the process of now, in terms of thinking of settling down or wanting to settle down, I've realized that the cultural differences I experienced with white boys were something too much for me, honestly. And I love them. I love them as friends. But when it came to just little things like, you understand what I mean, right? It was just a hindrance in settling down in terms of having a family. But that also taught me something important. A preference doesn't mean prejudice. Sometimes it's simply about understanding where you feel you can build a life, share values, and be understood culturally. And that understanding of myself came with age. It didn't come when I was a teenager. It came through experience, grief, therapy, and the process of understanding who I was becoming. Now, when I first came to England, my mum was going to RCCG. And honestly, RCCG became a family to me. A lot of the community around me was and probably is still Nigerian because that's where I grew up in terms of that community, which meant I was learning another African culture whilst I was already trying to understand British culture. Honestly, there were months or moments when there was a culture shock. I'm trying to, guys, you're gonna have to bear with me. It's my first video, okay? I'm trying to, if it cuts, if you don't see that bit, just know that I'm trying. So, when I first came to England, RCCG became a family to me. A lot of the community around me was Nigerian, which meant I was learning another African culture whilst I was already trying to understand British culture. Honestly, there were moments when that was a culture shock in itself because we're all African, but we're not all the same. Cameroonian culture is not Nigerian culture. Nigerian culture is not Ghanaian culture. Ghanaian culture. Every African country has its own history, traditions, languages, food, values, and identity. But there is something beautiful about having all these different cultures and still recognizing something familiar in one another: family, faith, community. I want to talk about food. Give me some Ghanaian light soup and fufu. When I tried that, my world changed. The way we gather, the way we welcome people, and above all, our love that we share for one another. RCCG gave me a space where I could express my blackness and my Africanness freely, as you can see, while I was still figuring out what those things meant to me in the UK. It was a safe space. It was a family for me, and it helped keep me grounded in my African culture. Even though the people around me were predominantly Nigerian and I had to learn another culture, sometimes Yoruba, Ekaro, everybody. What did we mean? Yeah, why I was I should just read it, right? Let me just read it. Let me just read it and focus, okay? Even though the people around me were predominantly Nigerian and I had to learn another culture within my own continent, there was still something familiar about being surrounded by African people. I am genuinely grateful for the moments I shared in RCCG, the people, the experiences, and the community, because those things became part of the foundation that helped me reconnect with myself later in life. So after coming here from Africa, joining the church, living, having friends, moving on, doing my job, doing my business, doing my life, I then lost my mum. I think grief changes the questions you ask yourself. When my mum passed away, I went through one of the most difficult periods of my life. I was in therapy for over 2 years, and initially I thought I was simply trying to process grief. But looking back, I think I was doing something much deeper. I started searching for myself again. I started asking myself, who was I before I came to this land? Who was I before I had to adapt? Who was I before I had to figure out how to fit into the British society? Who was I before all these experiences became part of me? Grief brought me back to those questions. Identity crisis, right? It made me remember the person I was before I came here to seek refuge or to settle, and before I had to navigate a completely different culture. And perhaps one of the biggest things grief did for me, I don't know where I am. You see, this is the diaspora. We'll just be going, okay, when I switch, I come back. We'll just be going. I can't be cutting it and bringing it back. Oh. And perhaps one of the biggest things grief did for me was to bring me back to myself. Looking back, I also realized that my experience of Britain has never been one thing. It has been complicated, beautiful, painful, confusing, and sometimes difficult. But there has also been people who have shown me genuine love. Honestly, my white friends, they stood for me when my mum passed away. They encouraged me to go to therapy, like I said earlier. And I found them a safe space to speak to, because especially when you're saying you're going to therapy, that's normal. That's a normal conversation with them. And so those friendships taught me that asking for help is not weakness, and that there is strength in allowing people to support you. given that they have the right intentions. Honestly, I want to thank British people who have been open to us that have come here. I think we've had to learn each other. We've had to understand each other's cultures. And I have seen British people be open to learning about our culture. And if you're on TikTok, you see the way they dance. Our food. I saw one chin chin cheesecake one time. Was it them? No, they have really adapted to our culture. They have even embedded it in their cuisine, and that is a big saying. And we've found a way to learn and love each other, especially as the generations have gone on. That doesn't mean that there isn't difficult moments or difficulties that exist between both, but I think there is something powerful in recognizing the people we have chosen to open ourselves up to, and also recognizing how they have eventually or are still welcoming us and building relationships and trying to build relationships with us both way, either way. Something I've thought about a lot recently is unfamiliarity. And this is where my own childhood experiences have made me reflect differently. I remember what it felt like to see people who looked completely different from me, to encounter a culture I didn't understand, and to experience a place that felt unfamiliar. I remember the shock, the uncertainty, and the questions. And now I think if I experienced that when I encountered a different culture, what was it like? Or what did it feel like for the people that actually lived here, especially in the white areas and the suburban areas I grew up in their communities, in their towns, and their villages for generations, when suddenly people from a completely different background just began arriving at their doorstep. They may have been shocked too, like I was. They may have been trying to understand. They may have been asking questions. Perhaps they didn't always know how to express that uncertainty. I think history matters, culture matters, migration matters. The experience of people who came here matter. But the experience of the people who were already here matter too. We have to be able to tell both sides of the story. Understanding doesn't mean excusing prejudice, racism, or discrimination. It means trying. I just thought in my head. I just thought of a. You can see something on social media. I just thought something in my mind. And I just want to start this all over again because why am I laughing here? Whoa. Makes me annoyed now. But I'm just going to be in and out because I'm reading a blog, but when you write it, it's one thing to write, but when you read it, I'm reliving this experience. It's like I'm going back in time and summarizing what has been years of experiencing life out of my hometown, my homeland. It's yeah. So where did I stop? Man, we have lived though. Amo, how are we this age already? How are you this age already? And me, sometimes I'll be saying it, I'll be going out, just take it like that. If you love, you love. Otherwise, the reality of life will code switch. So understanding both sides of this coin and this conversation doesn't mean we're excusing prejudice, racism, or discrimination. It means trying to understand where people are coming from so that we can find a way forward, especially with so many discourse happening online right now. This really led me to write this. Because I have been the person who didn't understand, and I've also been the person who wasn't understood. Perhaps I feel like this gives me responsibility to try and build a bridge between the two. So, this is something I've also been thinking about when it comes to Africa. We can have different countries, languages, traditions, and histories, but there is still something powerful about remembering that we are all connected. One continent, many nations, many cultures, but a shared heritage. I don't think unity means pretending that Cameroon and Nigeria are the same, because they aren't. I don't think unity means erasing our individual cultures. To me, it means recognizing the value in each other, learning from each other, welcoming each other, and finding the things that connect us. Perhaps Africa's strength is not that we're all the same. Maybe it's that we are different and still belong to something bigger. And so we get to experience all of that. Guys, our goal should be that we should travel all over Africa. Because some cultures I see, some what they're eating there, I said, you put eat this here. I thought they only ate it abroad, somewhere else. Naivety, even to my own continent. And I'm still learning. So, and that brings me back to the Good Samaritan story that we read earlier. The Good Samaritan didn't solve every problem in the world. He didn't change politics, end the conflict between communities, or even stand on a stage. He saw one human being in need and he helped him. That was his contribution. And I think sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves to solve the entire world. I know I do sometimes. I'd be seeing people say, oh, we should solve this problem. We think change has to be massive or that we have to have a platform, influence, or position of power. But the Good Samaritan shows us something different. Sometimes the biggest changes happen off stage because they speak directly to a human need. Someone needs food, help them. Someone is lonely, sit with them. Someone is grieving, show up and be present. Someone needs medical help, encourage them to seek it. Someone has just arrived in a country, help them find their feet, find their way. Someone is different from you, get to know them. Love doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes love looks like stopping on the side of the road and helping, or just a smile, or even a compliment. So, what is the issue that bothers you? What is the issue that bothers you? Because there's a saying that be the change you want to see in the world. And I think there is something powerful about bringing that idea back to ourselves. Yes, we can't solve every problem individually, but we can ask ourselves, what is one issue in the world that genuinely bothers me? And then what can I offer towards the solution? Because that's the most important. Saying there's this issue, there's this issue, there's this issue. Okay, what solution are you going to bring to the table? Or can you just offer? Maybe you're not even going to do it. Just offer a solution towards this. What can I give? Is it my time? Is it my skill? Is it my money? Is it my attention? Because just actually speaking about this can also be enough. Is it my compassion? Maybe it's homelessness, loneliness, racism, poverty, mental health, helping immigrants settle, supporting elderly people, helping young people, or simply being a better neighbor, that person next door to you. That if there is an emergency, it doesn't matter how much family you have here, the person that will really help you is the person next door. Never lose sight of that. You don't have to solve the whole problem, even when you analyze and figure out what bothers you in the world or what you're called to. You just have to find the part where you can offer a solution or be a solution. The Good Samaritan didn't solve every problem, but he solved the problem that was directly in front of him. And that was worthy of being remembered in scripture. And when I say scripture, I mean the Bible. He wasn't on a stage. He wasn't famous. He simply saw human need and he responded with love. Love has to lead. I think it's especially important in the world we're living in now because we are seeing so much division, fear, segregation, and pressure to choose a side. Sometimes we become so attached to our core groups that we stop thinking for ourselves. We stop asking, what are my morals? What are my principles? What are my values? What kind of person do I want to be? What does my group believe? And then we defend it. But what if we stepped back for a moment? What if we became introspective and looked at ourselves? What if we asked, am I contributing to this problem? Am I treating people differently because I decided they belong to another group? Am I willing to hear a story that's different from mine? Am I willing to put myself in someone else's shoes? For me, I don't think unity means pretending our differences don't exist. I don't think it means ignoring racism, discrimination, or history. I don't think it means everyone has to agree. I think, to me, unity means learning how to live together whilst those differences still exist. Because two things can exist at the same time. Duality is also a part of life. You can be making a lot of money whilst also experiencing grief. Happy here, sad here. And still trying to find a balance in between, duality. We can love our culture without hating someone else's culture. We can acknowledge our history without allowing history to make us incapable of loving people in this present moment. We can be proud of where we come from and still make room for someone else. We can acknowledge pain, acknowledge gratitude, learn from one another, and choose what we carry forward. Because big changes start with small changes. We often look at the world's problems and feel powerless, but maybe we don't have to fix everything. Maybe we just have to start somewhere. One person, one conversation, one act of kindness, one meal, 1 hour of our time. That's a lot, honestly. When you put into perspective how much you do in a day and how much you accumulate time, an hour is a sacrifice, and don't ever underestimate it. One person we decide to understand instead of judging, one person we decide to welcome, or one person we decide to help. Big changes start with small changes first. Sometimes we underestimate the significance of things that never make the news, the things that never go viral, and the things nobody claps for. But those moments matter because sometimes the biggest changes happen quietly between human beings, you and I. Like right now, we are gisting. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty of things. Between human beings, a lot of change happens, especially when there's emotional connection attached to it. Where somebody chooses to stop, listen, help, or show compassion, they're essentially changing that person's life because they have an opportunity to impact the perspective or the decisions that someone makes based on your advice. So be careful with your words. Now, with all that being said, what have I actually learned about my identity? The older I get, the more I realize that identity isn't always about choosing one box. I am Cameroonian. I am part of the African diaspora. I'm also someone who has grown up in Britain. Actually, I have actually grown up in Britain as someone because I've written it as though I'm publishing it. So Britain is not the land where I was born, but it has become a home away from home, and I'm grateful for that. Africa will always hold a part of me that nobody can take from me. Cameroon is the part that essentially is my foundation of who I am. And Britain is the story I have lived and I'm still living. I no longer see those things as competing. They're both part of my journey. And so that is what being part of the diaspora really means to me. You learn how to honor where you came from while appreciating where life has taken you. Belonging doesn't always mean choosing one place over another. Sometimes it means learning how to hold both spaces. Balance. I don't want to erase who I was. That's also why I'm willing to talk about things I did when I was younger, at least in the confinement of where it applies, because some things I don't want to talk about when I was younger. Some memories hurt and I'm still dealing with it, or I've dealt with it and I would like to keep it in the past, But where it applies and where I feel people will be able to learn from it, I bring it up. Because especially because I've been on the internet, I can reference those moments because I know a lot of people remember it. And they'll be able to take from it and see a new perspective. I know people can take a sentence from your past and use it to define your entire character. But I don't want to erase the girl I was. I truly want to understand her, have compassion for her, and be accountable for what she got wrong. She was learning. And honestly, so am I, darling. So am I. The difference is that today I have more experiences. Excuse me. More relationships, more understanding, and more responsibility for the words I use. So if someone asks me today about the things I said when I was younger, my answer is simple. Yes, I said them. And no, I don't believe those things today. Being able to say that openly is evidence of growth. Growth isn't pretending you were never wrong. Growth is being able to look at yourself honestly and say, I understand something differently now. And so what do I want this new chapter to be? Why am I making this video? Because I am starting again. I am starting again. Is there a reflection in my glasses? I'll be so annoyed there because my background, I just put things, there's laundry here. I'm in my father's house, so there's laundry. So I'm a normal person. I shall move it though. Can you see it? Let's see. So why am I making this video? I've told you what made me make this video, but really, I didn't have to talk. So why am I making this video? Because I'm starting again. And I want this channel to be a place where I can share my journey as I now understand the road I'm on and the people that I connect with. I want it to be a place where I can talk about identity, diaspora life, culture, faith, if and when grief, relationships, growing up between Britain and Africa, and all the complicated spaces in between come up. I want to be able to share them from this point of view, because this is really how I view life. I want to explore what it means to belong, what it means to build bridges, what it means to understand people who are different from us, what it means to grow, what it means to heal, and what it means to choose love in a world that sometimes encourages us to choose sides. Honestly, I don't expect everyone to agree with me in everything I've said, and truly, because everyone sees things from different point of views, I'm open to the fact that someone else have a different point of view, and I'm open to also learning them. But I think there is value in being able to say, this is what I believed in then, and this is what I understand now, and this is how I have changed. So yeah, this is me, a Cameroonian who came to Britain, a girl who grew up between cultures, a girl who experienced culture shock, a girl who made mistakes, and a girl who had experiences that shaped her thinking before she understood how those experiences were shaping her. I met people who challenged those assumptions. I found community. I found parts of Africa outside of Cameroon. I have been held by people from cultures different from my own. I lost my mum. I went to therapy. I had to ask myself who I was. And through that process, I began to understand myself in a way I never had before. I know my journey is not finished. And I know there is still so much growing, learning, and unlearning to do. But I do know this. I don't want my story to create another division. I want it to build a bridge. I want my story to remind someone that people are more complicated than the labels we give them. That unfamiliarity doesn't have to become fear. That difference doesn't have to become segregation. That history doesn't have to prevent healing. And that our identities don't have to be weapons against one another. We have to put ourselves in other people's shoes. With everything happening in this world, especially right now, I want to leave you with one question. Can we put ourselves in each other's shoes? Just for 1 second. Can we imagine what it feels like to arrive somewhere completely unfamiliar? Can we imagine what it feels like to watch your neighborhood change? Can we imagine what it feels like to be the person who is different? And can we also imagine what it feels like to be the person watching something unfamiliar arrive in your own land on your doorstep? Can we hold both experiences? Can we acknowledge both sides? Can we understand that people have histories, fears, and stories that we may never fully know? And then after that, still choosing to love one another. Because I think that is the challenge. Not to become the same people, but to become more human in our approach towards one another. Love, peace, patience, kindness, self-control, humility. And so I urge you to start with yourself. Like we said, be the change you want to see in the world. Yes, you can't solve every problem individually. We know that. But we can also ask ourselves, what is one issue in the world that bothers me? What can I do about it? Who can I help? Who can I welcome? Who can I listen to? Who can I encourage? Where can I bring peace? Where can I choose to love? Perhaps change doesn't always begin with governments. Perhaps it doesn't always begin with leaders. Perhaps it doesn't always begin even on a stage. Sometimes it begins with you and me. Right? Even this conversation, the time I'm going to use to sit down, to write it, to speak with you, just to give you a different perspective, is also a change. I'm leaving my own little piece on the table. I'm offering my own little bit of solution as where I am right now in my life. Seeing what I'm seeing. And knowing that I love to love. I want love. I love love. Okay, forget about it. Okay. Right. So this will begin with you and I. Now, these conversations we're having. It will also begin in our homes. Begin in our homes. I'm so tired. Begin in our homes. The conversations we have one another at home as we train ourselves before we go out in the world to experience it. In our friendships, in our communities, and in the way we treat the person who is different from us. We can genuinely be the change we want to see. Adapting and becoming that lifestyle, and then someone else will be influenced by that lifestyle. Because that's what a Christian is, right? They said that these people act like Christ, and so they call them Christians. There was a knowing, there was a seeing, there was a witnessing. And what better way to say without saying by witnessing what you believe in, showing up as that. So I really do believe that big changes do start with the small things first. We are one land, many people, but always remember we are one humanity. I'm proud to be Cameroonian. I've said this a lot, but I love my country. I love my country. I'm grateful for the African communities that helped raise parts of me. Because me and Nigerian music, if I sing Yoruba to you here, that's one thing that I would give it to Nigerians. We have learned their language through music. The food from Ghanaians, what else can I even say? But so much culture that I've learned. East Africans, knowing what they eat as well. I was like, wow, chapati in Africa? Wow. Honestly, I am so naive to so much that I'm still yet to experience in this world. I am open to say that. I don't know it all, and I'm not claiming to know it all. And I'm so happy that I still have more to experience. And I look forward to it every day. I'm also grateful for the British people who welcomed me in their communities, who loved me, stood beside me, and have taught me so many things. I believe there is space to appreciate all of this without pretending that every experience was perfect. We are all learning from one another. We are all experiencing growing pains. We're all trying to figure out how different communities can become one society without losing what makes each of us who we are. So maybe that is the work. Not erasing difference, but learning how to live with difference. Learning how to understand, listen, welcome, and love. Different nations, different cultures, different histories, one continent, and ultimately, we are all one human family. So this is my story. This is my diaspora identity. And this is what life has taught me so far. You don't have to belong to my group for me to see your humanity. You don't have to look for me to love you. You don't have to look like me either for me to love you. You don't have to come from where I come from for us to find a common ground. And I think football does this amazingly. For a moment in time, you see everyone come together for one shared moment of enjoyment. And I don't have to abandon where I come from to appreciate where I am. Maybe that is what growing up has really taught me. Actually, that's one of the key things growing up has really taught me. That we can wear each other's shoes for a moment. Not be saying you borrow something, no get them back. In other words, if you understood what I said. But for a moment, we can wear each other's shoes. We can listen. We can learn. And when I'm saying that, it means putting yourself in other people's shoes mentally. To listen from what they're going through, but offer help. Learn also, so you don't have to actually go through that pain to learn the lesson. We can acknowledge that things went wrong and that we got things wrong. We can appreciate the people who have shown us love, regardless of race, regardless of anything, love. And we can choose what kind of people we want to become. Because in a world where there is so much pressure to divide ourselves, the most powerful thing we can do is refuse to lose our humanity, which is remembering that we are all breathing the same air, drinking the same water. Or in other words, we need water to live, we need air to live, we need food to eat. It doesn't matter where you are, that is humanity, the basic human need. We all have it in common. So I want this chapter of my life to be about that. But most importantly, I want us to bring us back to one another. Because love is priceless. It is. And sometimes the greatest changes happens when we choose to stop, listen, help, welcome, understand, and love. Just like the Good Samaritan. Do likewise, as Jesus would say. So welcome to my channel. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, give a thumbs up, share to your friends and family. That baby used to do that. This is me starting again. And this time, I want to start with love. From me to you. I love you.